Dyson.
Can I acknowledge the former speakers who have contributed in this debate and say that this is one of those rare occasions when many parties are praising each other, and it is a bit of an indication of how severe the earthquake was and how much it has affected all of us, because very soon I'm going to be praising two cabinet ministers, and that's not something that I want to do very regularly, but I'm doing it because they deserve the praise, actually. I want to begin by acknowledging Jerry Brownlee, who has been appointed by the government to be in charge of the earthquake response. He has worked hard and constructively with all parties in this House, and I want to commend him for that. I was very distressed to see that his own home had been damaged in the earthquake. I know he deliberately chose not to raise that in public. It's been in the media, and I just want to give him an extra commendation, because when you're really feeling like getting on with sorting out your own life and you get a big new job, it makes it all that harder, and he has done it magnificently. I also want to commend John Carter for what I think is a genuine effort to understand the issues from our perspective in Canterbury and help to work alongside us to resolve them. I urge both those ministers to continue with that attitude as we progress this legislation in the House. A number of us have concerns about the process, about some of the specifics in the legislation, and we'd like those concerns at least considered, preferably addressed, and we certainly have questions to answer. We do have a few hours to do it, but I don't generally like legislation being put through all stages without the opportunity for a select committee consideration. So I would really ask the Minister who's leading this debate, assisted by John Carter, during the committee stages to take seriously the issues that have been raised, because that will be the spirit in which they are raised in this House. I want to move on, Mr Speaker, just briefly to digress from the specifics of the legislation and talk about some of the damage in my electorate. My electorate is called Port Hills. It got away lightly, actually, compared to much of the rest of our region. But you wouldn't think so when you drove around. There have been two earthquakes in Canterbury. I want to put on record that we had a second one on Wednesday the 8th of September. It wasn't an aftershock. It did cause a lot of people to say bother, and some shorter words as well. But it was very sharp, and it was centred quite close to Littleton in my electorate. Littleton and Heathcote Valley particularly bore the brunt of that second earthquake. The port itself, Littleton, has been very damaged in both the Saturday quake and the Wednesday quake, but fortunately was able to continue operating, which is a great relief. But many homes in Littleton have been substantially damaged, as have many of the commercial buildings. Two historic buildings in Littleton, the Harbour Light and the Empire Hotel, are both still under threat. I understand the Harbour Light's going to be saved, which will be a great relief to many people who have enjoyed evenings there, and I hope the same is true of the Empire. The whole of our province has had significant damage to many of the churches, and it was amazing to see the response to the cross-faith service that was held on Sunday outside the cathedral. But in Littleton, the Holy Trinity Church has been extensively damaged, and I certainly hope it's able to be restored. In Sumner, there's no chimneys left to speak of. Fortunately, not many of them were in use prior to the quakes, but we also have significant damage to the Sumner Borough Council building, which is, again, a historic building. In Heathcote Valley, there's been a lot of damage to houses, primarily as a result of the second quake, as I said, and we've also lost the Valley Inn, the centre for social evenings and drinking in the Valley, the home of many good conversations, the host of our Dawn Parade Anzac Day services, over 130 years old, and that building is no longer there. In Woolston, historic buildings such as the Ferry Road Law Centre and the Community Library are under threat, and many of the businesses will have to move. And in Sydenham, many historic buildings which are used as commercial premises and residential facilities are still cordoned off and are teetering quite literally. Many other parts of my electorate in our city and our region have suffered significant damage. But every single person who was there on Saturday and on Wednesday and in between has suffered huge stress. For some, that stress has been nearly overwhelming. Well, Mr. Speaker, you can judge a community by its reaction to bad times. The earthquakes on Saturday and Wednesday and the hundreds of aftershocks since were big and were scary. From every corner of our communities, people got out of their homes and out of their businesses and asked what they could do to help someone else. The response has been extraordinary. The response from around the country has been extraordinary. Mr. Speaker, I expect you and others who in the past have not been able to do this to really go the final step and back the Crusaders next time they play. Such has been the strength of support from around the country. Mr. Speaker, I seriously... We'll have the shield back would be a very generous donation to our region. That would certainly lift our spirits. People have helped by checking on their own families, their neighbours, their work colleagues, just checking that people are okay. They've cooked and baked, they've shovelled and sweated. Students have changed their image forever by volunteering in their hundreds to help with the clean-up. They cancelled the Under 500. That was a big joy to many people in the South Island, but they did that to help. They have been brilliantly led by our civil defence, our fire brigade, the professional firefighters and the volunteers, by our police, our ambulance officers, our health professionals, by our workers in Orion and in City Care. So many highly competent, hard-working people, all the staff in our government departments and agencies, all of these people helping others in their professional and private capacity, because many of those people work well outside their paid hours, helping other people when I know for a fact that many of them needed help themselves. Those people deserve a huge thanks from this House and from our nation. Mr. Speaker, I just want to move back to the specifics of the bill itself. It is a reaction to our extreme events and the consequences of those quakes. It is an extreme bill itself. 22 acts are basically suspended and replaced by order in council without any parliamentary scrutiny or agreement for the actions which would normally come within a legislative framework. So that is a big step for this House to take. The establishment of the Commission provides an opportunity for a collaborative approach, for clear leadership, but there's no accountability to the public for their decisions and not even any specific skill set required for the commissioners to have outlined in the bill. There doesn't appear to be any provision for a robust registration process for the activities undertaking through this new process. Mr. Speaker, we cannot afford to have another 1990s leaky building scenario with local government and central government pointing the blame fingers at each other while the homeowner, surrounded by wet, rotten boards, ends up carrying the burden. Minister Turia noted this very point herself, and I agree with her. Government in this legislation is exempted from all responsibilities. That is a very big step for this Parliament to take. Mr. Speaker, the final point I want to make is this. Where will this bill take us? Look at Napier and the clear vision that city had for life after their earthquake. We haven't had yet such an opportunity in Canterbury. It's not surprising after only 10 days. We've spent all our time looking after each other, getting the sewerage, the water, the power connected, providing food for people, literally the essentials of life. But we need an opportunity to have a say in the shape of our future. This legislation must not be used in a way that will block our voice being heard in determining the shape of our future. Mr. Speaker, I want to end by inviting all my parliamentary colleagues from outside our region and their friends and their family to come to Canterbury. I don't want you to come and rubberneck. I don't want you to ghoulishly look at the misfortune of others. I want you to come and speak